A year ago, I found my Sona. I finally connected with enough to want to invest in my first fursuit. I had gotten into a car crash and won $5,000, so, because it wasn't my money, I didn't feel bad about going through with commissioning a suit. Before I tell the story, I have to let you know that I don't have access to a lot of the Instagram messages since I deleted my account after a certain zoophile doxed me, downloaded photos of me, and have been spreading these things around to other people like some kind of flex. Rose did send me screenshots of some of our DMs during an argument we're having as I'm writing this script. Now, I didn't know the first thing about fursuit culture and how prices worked, so I was going around to a lot of furry makers I've watched on YouTube and looked at their commission pages. They were either closed or offered full partials for over $10,000. I wanted a full partial because I didn't know how I'd feel in a full bodysuit, especially in California, where it's super hot. Eventually, I made my way to Twitter since that was the most recommended site to find open commissioners and asked anyone if they would offer to make my pigeon with a budget of $5,000. These are the references I used. You could see all the parts one wanted: head, arms to about the shoulders, legs to the waist, and a tail. Someone I'll call Rose was the only person to reply to this tweet. They moved accounts, so I'll be showing what their account was before they moved in some of these screenshots. All they really did was capitalize some letters to move. They said they would be able to make my suit with the full budget I was offering. It was totally my fault for not noticing that them starting without asking for any measurements was a huge red flag, but this was my first time commissioning someone online, and I had no experience in fursuits at all during this time. Our payment process would be $1,000 each month since I was nervous about spending so much. Rose mentioned that they would send me pictures of the fur they've ordered early April. By late April, I asked for an update, and they acknowledged this, but didn't send me anything. They asked me for clarification for what I wanted for the hands and tail, so I drew these diagrams and sent these to them. I should compare these now since we're here, but here's the expectations versus reality comparison. I didn't see these until later, so I didn't know that they were going to be made of woolly fur and look like they were dragged through the dirt. They also seem like they were only going to go up to my elbows considering where the hand is, even though I was asking for arms that went far enough to reach my shoulders. The tail looked really weird to me since they were supposed to be peacock feathers and Rose had padded feathers on top of them so much that they looked chunky. Also, this is the reference of the tail they asked of me, and it looks like they decided to go with the original reference instead, having only 4 long feathers. I found it weird that they put feathers on top of the tail, since the top in the reference doesn't show that. I admit that maybe the full body may have confused them, but they didn't ask me about this at all. It also looks like from this picture that the bottom of the tail isn't the cream color in any of the refs. It might be the lighting, but I feel like the light color they were using for the lighter parts would be noticeable. For comparison, this is the cream color on the head. The first time I requested a refund was in May, about 2 months after the first payment was sent. I had received absolutely no photos of anything, just 2 fur colors that were going to be used, so I requested that they gave me the $3,000 that had been sent already back. They complained about how they already started and that the fur costed $1,000, and I offered to just pay the $1,000 and get the rest of the money back. I was getting scared at this point because they had shown me 2 of the furs on Instagram and said that they were going to use this fur for the dark brown pattern. I asked again for a refund because Rose was trying to claim that it was the lighting that was making the fur look white instead of dark brown. They are very, very adamant on not stopping this project, instead trying to guilt-trip me and saying they did just so much already. They finally send a picture of the head which, at the time, satisfied me to know that they were actually doing something. I didn't notice that the eye color seemed to be blue or cyan instead of pigeon's green. I also didn't feel too bad about the eyelashes not being the same as mine, making Pigeon look more mature, and her having eyelids instead of her eyes being wide open because of her playful personality. These were red flags I had ignored because I was so relieved that something was actually being done. They then decided to react to a Twitter post right after this about people telling commissioners to completely change the fur color after things were done. Rose was acting like I did this, but they didn't send me any updates while these were being worked on. And I was mad at them because they were saying that they wanted to use a nearly white color for Pigeon's dark brown patterns. Rose says they never shared the head because they wanted to make the ears first, but I feel like, as a maker, you should share progress pictures instead of making the whole thing first and asking if there's anything that needs to be changed. They said they would avoid this miscommunication happening again and said they were going to update me more in 2 weeks. 4 months later, without any update, they asked if I wanted the jaw of the head to be movable, and I said yeah. They also asked if I wanted there to be a cooling pad instead, which I also agreed to, but they said that costed extra, so I didn't want to go through with it. For $5,000, now that I know better, I feel like what is being offered should be included. Makers especially shouldn't act like they're going to add it only to jump scare you saying they want more money from you. I asked for any sort of update pictures, and Rose claims they couldn't do that because the head base was open and that they would update me later. Then suddenly a hurricane hit, which was so weird because there was an active huge hurricane in Florida, but this maker was from the UK. I tried looking up other active hurricanes and didn't see anything. In November, I asked where they planned to have the legs at because I wanted to start looking or making clothing for Pigeon. Rose said they were going to have them end right under the knees, which if you look at my ref again, it was supposed to go up to the waist, so this was a significant cut. I dumbly didn't argue because it was coming up to almost a year of waiting, and I was getting tired and desperate for literally anything to be shipped over here. Asked for photos again and got nothing. Rose claimed they had been busy with Christmas since September. They claimed that my hands, feet, and tail were all done. They didn't send any pictures, and I asked again in January, but they didn't answer. The pictures seen here were from today, which will come up later. I moved to Twitter to ask them, and they claimed they were in an accident now. They then asked again if I wanted to buy magnetic eyelids and a moving jaw for $200. I agreed because I believed that $200 was pretty good for both of these. When they sent the invoice from Scientize7, I was confused because firstly, it wasn't from FreakyFrenzySuits like most of the payments, and secondly, the invoice was for $400 instead. I asked what that was about, and they said that they said $200 for both, but they actually meant $200 for each, so $400. I said I didn't want to buy that then since I had mentioned earlier that I was going to send the $200, and they didn't correct me. I asked them for pictures of the head, and they refused, and said they wanted me to make a decision first. Apparently, they had already opened the head to get everything ready before I even paid and claimed that the head would be ruined if they put it back to take a picture and reopen it. I told them I was considering the moving jaw, but I wanted to see the head first. Rose said that they would buy the materials before I had even decided if I wanted to go through with it or not. I asked for pictures again, and they did not answer. They didn't answer until I mentioned that someone had said that they were a scammer and had been sending proof. Before I continue with the messages, I'll show you these proofs. Granola mentions that Rose is a scammer to someone who had recommended them, mentioning Rose's profile picture. This picture is from one of their posts of a plushie they claim to have made. Granola sends the Amazon listing for this plushie, proving Rose did not make the plushie at all. They also steal digital art, as Granola also mentions. Granola also explains part of the scam in where Rose claims to be the maker of these products, but instead orders used fur that's close enough to the ref or used parts for other suits. They point out that the hooves for my dear OC look a lot more like parts for a cow or bull OC. Lastly, Granola shows a picture of a different used and matted part, clearly showing the same flooring as the ones Pigeon is always shown on. I'm not sure where this part was from, but Granola also shows a photo of a blue head that is in the same exact spot as a dog head Rose claims to have made. I'm guessing there may be a different account that's also attached to Rose. Continuing with the DMs, Rose, being a scammer, is more concerned about Granola, even though I did not mention them, but Granola is in a lot of their posts outing them as a scammer. I had commented under Granola's comment under Rose's post, and Rose says they'll finally send pictures and to delete my comment about them being sketchy. The hands, feet, and tail are shown looking as scruffy as ever. The feet are right next to the hands, so it's very obvious that they're the same color. This issue was mentioned earlier, but the conversation was on my deleted Instagram, but I was shown a picture of the arm with the foot in the background, and I asked, making sure the foot was the lighter cream color because the reference clearly shows that Pigeon has almost completely cream legs all the way down to her hooves. They assured me it was just the lighting and that the feet were in fact the cream color, but according to the picture of them together, Rose had lied because they are the exact same color. Anyway, they had claimed that everything but the head was finished, but in the photos of everything that was done, the legs were not there. And while my suit ref had the legs to the waist and Rose themselves said it would go to right under the knee, they lied about everything but the head being done because the legs had not been started. Rose then went back on being called a scammer and tried to bribe me with some DMs they had of someone who trusted them. But that honestly had nothing to do with anything besides proving that they were more concerned about not being outed as a scammer. I mentioned the foot and hand color being the exact same, and they ignored me and talked about Granola again, even though they were never mentioned. Saying Granola didn't have any proof, even though they were the only person I could find who was sending screenshots of Etsy and Amazon listings where Rose was buying from in order to resell for much more. Rose says they will fix everything and goes back to talking about Granola exposing them, offering to refund me if they were a scammer. Which they are. And they never did refund me. I had to force a chargeback on them. I told them to refund me, and they acted like they couldn't do that even though they offered. I told them I no longer wanted to continue with the commission because it was clearly a scam, and they needed to redo 4 or 5 parts anyway. And I didn't want to wait another year for what they could have done right in the first place if they had just communicated. But they couldn't have communicated because they were actually just buying used fursuit parts and reselling them. They said again they would refund me if they were proven a scammer, but a scammer was not going to refund the people they scammed, obviously. They mentioned that they used this soft cream color for the feet when in the images of the feet, it was instead very obviously that woolly brown color that's the same as the arms. They mentioned that they had asked questions about my OC while they were making it, which they did occasionally, like if I wanted to add on cooling pads for extra money. But then decided to not do the things they claimed they mentioned, like making the feet cream colored, and finish the product anyway. Rose gets upset that I'm being rude even though I have every right to be rude towards a scammer who didn't communicate and after a year was giving me my OC with the wrong colors. They also blamed me in saying I shouldn't have deleted my Instagram account even though I was doxxed, and someone was sending people over to my account in order to harass me. They were also saying that I never begged for pictures, even though I asked them all the time to send pictures, and I never received them until I threatened a refund these 2 times. Rose asks how they would refund me, and I said I would send an invoice. Immediately, they decided that refunding was not an option, even though they had offered it twice now. They also claimed they would be shipping everything next month in March, even though they need to redo the feet, make both legs, make the head, and likely redo the tail since the bottom didn't seem to have the cream color either. I sent the invoice and they said they can't refund me since everything was done, but again they needed to redo the feet, make both legs, make the head, and redo the tail. And there was no way all of that happened within a few hours. Rose claims that the tail is right and the feet were right, even though it's very clear that the cream fur was not used. They said they were going to redo the hands instead, being the easiest ones to alter, even though they were the closest to the right color anyway. They then claimed that I told them to add a moving jaw, even though my previous statement was that I was considering the moving jaw but wanted to see pictures of the head before I could decide if I wanted to pay for that. Again, they claim this soft cream fabric is the same as this woolly brown fabric and act like I was trying to get a refund just because Granola exposed them for being a scammer. While this was my last straw, there were many red flags that were overlooked, and the colors and length of each part were already not what I had paid for. I said that I would be reaching out to get a chargeback, and Rose acted like I was now just trying to get a refund due to harassment and that I was actually harassing them instead. Well, call all those who commission abusers, because I had done nothing but point out the mistakes in Rose's work, which I found out wasn't even theirs. Since I didn't have access to my deleted Instagram, I asked Rose to send a screenshot of when they told me to pay Scientize 7 instead because their PayPal was acting up. This was just for me to have better proof that they also own that account, forgetting that they had requested the $400 earlier from that account. They claimed that they aren't Scientize 7, and they also admit to being FreakyFrenzySuits, which is the account I sent most of the $5,000 to. Rose keeps claiming that they would send the screenshots of the invoices they sent me, but never does. They also claim that I harassed and defamed them. Rose then randomly asks what school I go to, likely to harass me there, or find a location that is close to me for nefarious reasons. They then say that they had nothing to do with Scientize 7, even though I could scroll up just a little bit and see that they had sent that $400 invoice through that account. The last thing I asked for were those screenshots again, and their smartass went with the "or." I'm just hoping to spread the word so you're not scammed by this person. And hopefully any screenshots of past work would be able to prove that they're the same person as this if they make a new account.